Hello and welcome to the Whitedoggarage YouTube channel. My name is Bob. This time I'd like you to tag along while I change over the sprockets and chain on my Suzuki Katana motorcycle, and I hope you enjoy. I have assembled the parts that I need for the job, that is front and rear sprockets and an O-ring chain. This is the chain and sprocket set that we will be replacing today. The first job is to pull the engine sprocket cover, but before doing that I remove the gear lever assembly. Then it is on to removing the 6 bolts that hold the engine sprocket cover on, and I pull the cover off. Next I remove the 2 bolts holding the chain guard and remove it as well. Next I flatten the tabs holding the engine sprocket nut and then remove the nut using an impact wrench. If you don't have an impact wrench, you can just as easily undo it by holding the rear brake on and using a spanner. With the nut off, I remove the engine sprocket lock washer. I follow this by prising the clip off the chain master link. I then use a small chisel to separate the front plate of the master link from the back plate and pins. I then pull out the back plate and pins and remove the chain. Next it is on to removing the back wheel. I first remove the R-clip securing the castellated nut and then undo the nut from the axle. I then use a rubber hammer to drive the axle part way out and then pull it from the other side to remove it. Having removed the sprocket mounting hub from the wheel, I then go round and prise out and flatten the lock washers on the sprocket retaining bolts. Then I undo the 6 nuts and bolts that hold the sprocket on before removing the sprocket. At this stage I like to go round and clean the sprocket mounting hub with kerosene or paraffin, but I don't go overboard as the hub lives its life coated in chain lube. Then I fit the new sprocket to the hub. I loosely install all 6 sets of bolts and nuts to hold it in place, and then go round and fit the lock washers to each pair in turn. With the lock washers in place, I then tighten all the nuts up and then fold up the lock washers. Before refitting the sprocket hub to the wheel, I go round and coat the bearing holder, wheel and sprocket hub bearings with high temperature bearing grease. There are 3 bearings on the back wheel of this bike, 2 in the wheel hub itself and 1 in the sprocket hub, and whilst the wheel is off I always make a habit of checking all 3. Now it is onto the chain, and the first thing I do is count the number of links. There are 96. The new chain comes with 102 links out of the box, which means I'll have to cut it back. I count the links on the new chain to confirm there are 102, and then mark the link where I'll need to cut the chain. I always double check my count, both on the old chain and on the new chain. This is not a part of the process where you need to make a mistake. I cut the chain by first grinding off the pin ends at the marked link. I use a cloth to cover the remainder of the chain to prevent grinder dust getting on it. With the pin ends ground down, it's a simple matter then to split off the plate with a chisel and remove the link. Back on the bike, I fit the new engine sprocket, lock washer and nut. Having refitted the back wheel, I run the new chain over the 2 sprockets before using the rear reel sprocket as a jig to line up the two ends of the chain. I first fit the O-rings to the pins on the back plate and push it onto the two links to be joined. I then fit the O-rings to the protruding pin ends and fit the front plate. I then use a clamp to force the front plate over the pins until the spring clip valleys are visible. I adjust the chain up to take the slack out of it and then fit the spring clip to the master link. I always secure the spring clip by wrapping safety wire around the middle of the clip and the corresponding front plate. Having checked the chain is running true, I then do up the engine sprocket nut with the impact wrench and then prise up and fold over the lock washer. Then it is back on with the engine sprocket cover. Refitting the chain guard, I use a dab of blue Loctite on the bolts to be absolutely sure they don't come loose. Happy that the chain is running true, I reattach the gear change linkage and the job is all done. So here we are, a few thousand kilometres on since the chain and sprockets were installed. It's all going nicely. There's a couple of points I just felt that I needed to make after I started editing the video. One thing I didn't cover in the video material, which I'm covering now, and the chain has done a few thousand kilometres, is that when you fit the master link and you fit the clip, the round end as opposed to the open end of the clip goes in the direction of travel of the chain when the bike is going forward. So in this case the round end goes this end and the open end goes that end. You don't reverse them because it causes the clip to come off. The other point I wanted to make was about clamps. I have a speciality clamp here, and what happens is, the joys of trying to do this one-handed, what happens is that it has a die which has got two holes in it, and it fits over the pins when you're clamping the plate in, and another die that goes at the back has a recess in it and fits over the pins at the rear. So this enables you to clamp in the plate for forcing it on. With the O-rings it's very tight. Now you don't need a special clamp. For many years I used a simple G clamp like this one. Well, it was in fact this one. I'd taken the end off there and would merely clamp that in fashion and force the plate on that way. This clamp actually allows me to do riveted ones better than I used to as well. There's special heads that crush the rivets in, but I've only shown you a master link with a clip, mainly because that's what I had on the day. And the only thing I would say is that if you're doing a riveted master link, you have to crush the ends at here after they come through the removable clip. You can do this with a punch. That's how I used to do it before I got the kit. However, you need to be very careful, and I would suggest that if you've got no experience, nobody showed you properly how to do it, that you wouldn't do it. Stick with the clipped style master link, because you can get into all sorts of bother with trying to knock them over with particularly a punch, and you can end up feathering the end and the whole thing will let go. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some useful hints in the video, or just enjoyed it for what it was. It's obviously most use to somebody who has a Suzuki motorcycle that they want to replace the chain and sprockets on. However, the general gist of it applies to all motorcycles with a chain drive. You simply have to remove the hardware surrounding the chain so that you can get at the chain and sprockets, and of course remove the back wheel. Your manual will undoubtedly have useful information on doing that. I try and keep these videos to about 10 to 15 minutes, and in doing this I fast forward through a lot of the action. This job of filming I think took about half a day, without filming probably about 2 hours or an hour and a half. But what I would say is that if there's something that you felt needed to be explained better, and I don't claim to explain that well, but if there's something you felt that you needed further explanation on, please hit me up in the comments. And thank you once again for watching.